All wars come from the astral. Everything comes from the astral. If you understand that everything happens etherically first, whether it be from the mental plane, emotional point of view, spiritual point of view, all of those unseen realms of thought, everything begins there. Everything that you can sense physically within this dense realm, the third dimension, everything within this third dimension is simply a result of the etherically planned. And I'll say that again. Everything that you experience physically, okay? Everything, your world, yourself, your situations, your circumstances, all of that is a result of etherical planning. So basically, the astral plane is the literal blueprint of what we see as the world, which is basically a program. Okay, I'm not here to debate on whether, I'm not here to talk about AI, simulation, or anything like that. We are biological beings, okay? We have a biological setting, but there is a part of this biological setting that is indeed entrapped within a very small program, which is where you only experience about 4% of what there really is. So that's this little teeny tiny matrix of a program that we call the world, Earth, the 7 continents, as if there's nothing else surrounding that. But anyway, the astral realm controls this small portion of the program. So basically what happens is the astral realm is not just for floating around in your astral body, having experiences. That's cool and all. It's just like I said, the physical realm. You got a club on the physical realm, trust and believe there's a club in the astral. All right, you got a church in the physical realm, there's a church in the astral. There's a direct mirror of what is here that we experience that is in the astral. However, understand that it was built in the astral first. So again, I'm going to take it back to the astral. Astral comes before Earth. Astral comes before this realm. The astral is really crowded. If you've traveled within the astral consciously, then you understand that it's a holding space for everybody and their mama, whether past or alive. Okay, so it's actually than what we see here on this planet. So it's a very vast space holding a lot of fragments of consciousness. So let's go back to the astral realm for a second. There's military in the astral realm. There is assassins that work within the astral realm. There are all kinds of agencies that have setups that are within the astral realm. Okay, so understand that they set up shop. Your governments, but not even your governments, because that's way too of a low side of the totem pole. The controllers or the collective that controls the governments, they set up shop within the astral because that's where it all begins. So when we talk about time doesn't exist here. Time exists in the astral. Okay? Astral is the creation of time. Time doesn't exist beyond the astral. Time doesn't exist in this realm. Time only exists in the astral. That is the cube. That's that Saturn energy. That's what's holding the astral in place. Okay, so time is a construct that exists within the astral. So when we talk about time, in real time, what we think is present, that is in the astral. Astral is always in present time because that's where time is. What we're experiencing here is not time. It's memory, or it's a residue or a result of astral time. Okay, so I feel what I've been intuitively feeling is that we're always a year behind the astral. 1 year behind the astral. Everything that happens in the astral, okay, when it's happening, we experience it physically in our reality a year later. So the reason why these agencies don't give a shit on what you got to say on YouTube or Facebook and your little collective and community, the reason why they don't give a shit is because you don't know that you are lagged. You are too late already. Okay? If you want to be strategic about anything within this realm, you got to place your consciousness within the astral and work from there. Become the magician in that area, and it will it will basically trickle down into your physical experience. This is basically how the magicians, like real magicians like David Blaine, okay, they work with the astral consciously in real time, which moves faster than this realm. So they're able to literally, if you have a dollar bill in your hand and you're seeing David Blaine on the street and he's just like, hey, I can show you this trick, okay, here, hold this dollar. And then all of a sudden, 2 seconds later, the dollar's in his hand. He's working with the overlaying realm. It's like, what's his name? Flash in DC, in the DC comics, where he moves faster than the speed of light, so it looks like everybody's slowed down. That's astral versus physical. So when you work in the astral, that's how fast you're moving to this reality. So this is why he was able to move bullets out of the way, or strategically place things, because he was working within the astral realm first, and then he descended back into the third, where the result of that, two people clashing, the bullets hitting, wherever. That's how it works, guys. So, I say this all to say that there's shit going on in the astral. There are wars happening. Whether you see, it's an invisible realm to this frequency, but trust and believe, there's shooting, there's astral fighting, there's all of that. And some of you guys are tapping into that in your dreams. Some of you actually probably are on missions in your dreams. Now, here's where I want to bring in John Wick and the Matrix. This is not a spoiler alert, because I know John Wick Chapter 3 is out in the theaters. But here's the last thing. This is how I want to conclude the conversation so that you get a good idea with a reference point. Most people, I don't think, realize this, but John Wick is Neo from the Matrix. They are parallel storylines. They are the same story. I'm not saying that just because Keanu Reeves played Neo in the Matrix and now he's playing John Wick. No, that's a strategic move, because Keanu Reeves himself is a very specific archetype, literally. So he plays specific roles. Same thing with Lawrence Fishburne. He is in John Wick 2 and 3. And he was also as Morpheus in the Matrix. Now, here's what most people are not syncing together. So, John Wick and crew and all the others who are like fighting and shit, most people just see an action movie. What they're doing is they're basically fighting in the astral. John Wick is an astral assassin. So if you want an idea of what happens. So if you notice when you watch, especially John Wick 2 and 3, you realize that when they're shooting each other, fighting, stabbing each other, most of it takes place in New York City. They're out in a busy street. They're out usually in train stations and so forth. Pay attention to the background and realize that no one on the street sees them. John Wick and whoever he's fighting in the streets, wherever he is, the common folk, the programs walking around, they don't see him. They don't see the fighting. And I'm just like, nobody sees this? And if they see it, they just think it's like a bad thing with the movie, like not getting it right. No, that's to tell those who are able to see that this is an astral fight. This whole entire storyline is astral fight. So they're fighting in the astral, so no one can see them. That's what's happening. So, also, how I wanted to tie it into the Matrix is basically, there are people like us who are waking up, like Neo woke up, right? I don't know if Neo's previous name or character was John Connor, I believe, right? So, as John Connor, he was just common folk programmed in the Matrix, right? And then he started to question and get that itch. And basically, there's a collective that scout for people who are awakening. And they come on, those are the white rabbits. Those are the rabbits. They come on and they say, hey, I got some truth to show you. Let me show you some shit. Let me show you like what the reality is. Because you're questioning, you're ready, right? So he brings them on in. Now Neo makes the necessary decisions to go into the red pill realm of like, hey, oh my God, I see everything. This is crazy. So he's in there. They're basically training him. They're training him, unbeknownst to him, to create the assassin called John Wick. So Neo is basically training to become John Wick in the Matrix. So the reason why I say that is he's training to become John Wick. He doesn't know. So all Neo knows is he's basically being used because he's a very special being, but before this being truly awakens on his own, there are agents or agency or an end agency that takes him in before he awakens on his own, so that you can now capture this being who is waking up to see everything for what it is. On his way to sovereignty, but there's a curve. You made a choice. You chose a part of a duality. The way to exit the program is to not play in duality on purpose. That's how you leave. That's how you consciously navigate through this program without being a victim to it, by not choosing sides. So Neo's issue is that he chose red over blue. So he automatically chose a side, which brought him to another duality, which is another part of slavery within this program. Anyway, so he thinks that, oh, you know, they're helping me awaken to see the truth because I am the one. They tell every assassin, every potential assassin that they are training, that they are the one. Okay, he's not the only one who's been told that he is the one. That's why his name is Neo, because they're all named Neo. Neo is one in an anagram, Neone. Neo is one. So every potential assassin that comes in for the training, their name is fucking Neo. Okay, so Neo himself, he's not special. They're like boosting, they're programming him or reprogramming him to make him think that he is the savior. So they're training him. So he is a slave. Neo is actually MK Ultra. He is brought within the other side to be mind controlled, to be trained to become a super fucking soldier. That's what Neo is. Now I'm seeing, I'm like, yo, where most people are even looking at the Matrix. Again, when you look at any doctrine or movie, anything, there's always so many different layers. So most people are like, oh my God, I see the real meaning of the Matrix. No, but there's more. There are more layers for those who are able to see. So Neo's basically being trained to become a MK Ultra slave. So as he's doing that, when you get through the trilogy, you get to Matrix 3, he ascends, he bursts into the sun, and now he sacrificed himself like Jesus. Jesus represents that program. Jesus represents the Savior program, because the Savior is the manipulated one. The Savior actually does all of the fucking work for the collective. This is why we have characters like Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. He's a Jesus archetype. He's constantly the noble one, has to make all the right decisions. And no matter what sacrifice, he'll kill himself for the truth Of all the people, he's the fucking one. But meanwhile, at the end of it all, he still goes right back to prison. And the shit resets all over again. So he's a part of that program. So they basically, he ascended within that program of being the one. And what happened at the end or after Matrix 3 is the fact that now he goes into the astral and he goes into back into the Matrix as a different character. So now, when in John Wick 1, when he was, he had his wife, his dog, he had like a regular life that was hidden from his assassin life. That was his Matrix life. That was Neo's Matrixy life, okay, or John's Matrixy life. Meanwhile, his other life, okay, the real purpose why he was inserted back in was because of his training from the Matrix. So he becomes this fucking assassin. Assassins have usually assassins have no personal purpose. What makes John Wick different is because he had a personal purpose. He gave himself a purpose, which created a disruption within the program, which is why the high table had to come in, because that's the program. So it's like, when you look at the assassins, they're do boys or girls. They just they take orders from the high table and they kill off who they need to kill off without any questions, because there's a code and there's a rule. Meanwhile, John Wick is over here is just like, why? There needs to be a reason why I'm doing this. So he uses the love for his wife, as the reason, which keeps him going, which keeps him continuously being disrupted to the program, which makes him the excommunicated. Okay, so that shit is just a story of a super soldier who's been MK'd Ultra and got through the Awoken program, okay? And now he's like, holy fuck, I want to get out of this. Like, how could I be so, you know what I mean? How do I leave? But he's already binded because of the training that he's been through. And because also that he sees the reality for what it is. So this is a real thing. This is not just entertainment. So a lot of you guys are being recruited without knowing that you're being recruited. So you think you're going through the awakening program, but you're really... This is why it's important for you to wake up to who you are before someone else shows you who you are through their eyes, through their lenses, through their agenda. Because then you got into another fucking program. So this whole superhero shit, okay, the Avengers and all of that, they're all MK Ultra fighting for the program for good and evil people. This is why in Endgame, when the role was taken away from them, they had no lives because they're slaves. They became slaves to their roles because the roles were given to them through manipulation. You see that in Captain America. She found out she was being manipulated. They brought her into the program and they gave her an ability. So now she's the superhero. She's Captain America. But that was all a fucking experiment creating a mind-controlled super soldier. So all of the fucking superheroes are mind-controlled super soldiers. Okay? They're just running around basically regulating the program. So yes, they are a step above the common folk or the program within, the people who basically are like NPCs just walking around like zombies. Sure, they save them, but they're being told that they're saving the sleep people for the good of humanity. But no, they're being used to keep the fucking people asleep. They're being used to keep the program intact. This is why Thanos is not the enemy. This is why Thanos is not a villain. Thanos is trying to kill the fucking program. He's trying to delete the shit. He's trying to wake people up. Okay? But people who are so caught up in these roles, they just want to continue to loop the same shit over and over and over again. So time travel, CERN was like a big thing with Endgame. Time travel, trying to save them their purpose without not even realizing that Thanos is actually freeing them. You know, but they couldn't deal with not having this purpose that was given to them. They were brainwashed. So it's just like, shit, I was Captain America, but now once Thanos did this shit, I'm not Captain America anymore. What do I do? You know, because they're still asleep. They're still sleeping. The superheroes are asleep, guys. This is the next level. The superheroes are sleeping. So, yes, you are super, but you're nobody's fucking hero. You're just super. That's it. So wake up into yourself and be sovereign. Be sovereign without the constraints of having to fall for the fuck games. Because you're a chess piece on that board. They build you up to use you. They turn that pawn into a higher up. If you play chess, you know that the pawns have the ability to become other higher pieces. So the pawns who are like, oh, shit, I'm waking up. As soon as you blink 3 times, they got you. They're like, oh, let's take this pawn and create a knight. Okay, here's your purpose. See, you're so much more than a pawn, but I'm still using you in my game. So that's the shit. And I don't know if this is like confusing for some of you. Some of you know exactly what I'm saying. This is extremely coded. I'm trying to be as straightforward as I possibly can with this message. But this message is important because it's time to wake up literally within your sovereign self. Stop waiting for someone to tell you what you need to be doing, how powerful you are. Fuck all the spiritual programs. I'm so serious. Like, I'm here to disrupt all that shit. Fuck all of the spiritual programs. There is no spiritual program. You are you. That's it. And do you understand what awaits outside of the construct of the 4%? Do you know what you really look like? How really big you are? This shit is Ant-Man, like on another level. We've been shrunken in quantum size, and we continue to get smaller and smaller and smaller. That's what the Russian dolls are about. The dolls, they get smaller. The dolls get smaller because Russia, okay? So stop making yourself small. So 2020 is literally another opportunity to shrink again. Honey, phone ring. Honey, I shrunk the kids. Honey, I shrunk the kids. Those who, I don't know what just happened. Okay, that was weird. See?